With the drought and famine gripping Samaria, the king was desperate. His lands were cracked and empty. His people were weak and starving. Even his horses and mules were wasting away. Nothing grew in the fields, nothing moved in the herds. All was parched and silent under the relentless sun. He had tried everything except giving in to the Lord, except calling Elijah to lead his people out of the disaster. But the thought terrified him. What if the God who answered through Elijah was not the God he wanted to follow? On the edge of the city, beneath the shade of a great oak, sat Obadiah, the king's steward, quietly mourning the loss of his faith. For 3 long years, he had hidden the Lord's prophets, risking his life to bring them bread and water, shielding them from Jezebel's murderous eyes and Ahab's frenzied search. But now he could hide them no longer. The famine was too severe, the cupboard bare. Just as despair threatened to engulf him, a runner arrived from the king, bearing an urgent message. "Go, Obadiah," it read, "and search all the land to see if any spring can be found, any brook where grass may grow to save the few horses and mules still alive. Return quickly, for the king awaits." But how could Obadiah bring grass from the dry land? How could he find water in the cracks of the drought? Was the king testing him? Or was it Jezebel, sending him to his death? As he walked the hills, his mind raced. Was he about to die? Did the king believe he would actually find water in the wilderness? Was Jezebel waiting for him, her eyes gleaming with triumph? Or was Elijah watching from afar, ready to snatch victory from his grasp? But then a figure appeared on the horizon, moving slowly toward him. Could it be? Obadiah knew that wherever Elijah was, there was hope. The prophet's very presence brought with him the scent of rain, the whisper of a coming storm. With renewed strength, Obadiah ran towards the approaching figure. Kneeling before the man, he cried out, "My lord, Elijah?" "Yes," Elijah replied gently. "Tell the king I have come." Falling to his knees, Obadiah implored the prophet, "Do not leave me to deal with the king's anger. I have been faithful, yet I fear his fury." "Don't worry," Elijah said calmly, laying a hand on the steward's shoulder. "God will deal with him." Relieved beyond measure, Obadiah rose and followed the prophet back to the city, knowing that as long as Elijah was there, all would be well. Meanwhile, King Ahab paced his throne room, his face grim, his eyes burning with anxiety. 3 years of relentless drought had drained the land of its beauty. The sun scorched the earth, the wind carried dust, and the people grew weaker with each passing day. He missed his fields of grain, the murmur of his herds, the laughter of children. Now only silence answered him. He had consulted priests and prophets, performed rituals and sacrifices, but the rains refused to fall. His courtiers urged him to summon Elijah, to seek the help of the Lord. But how could he call upon God when his own heart was divided? To turn to Yahweh meant renouncing the gods of his fathers, leaving the ways of his ancestors. Yet the famine gnawed at his people, and fear whispered in his ear. Perhaps it was time to choose. When Obadiah and Elijah entered the throne room, Ahab turned from the window, his face etched with weariness. Seeing Elijah, a flicker of recognition crossed his features, but then doubt clouded his eyes. "Why have you come?" he asked cautiously. "Are you come to mock me? To gloat over my misery?" Elijah met the king's gaze steadily. "Did not the Lord God of Israel speak by my mouth, saying that he would bring drought to the land, that it would not see rain for 3 years unless he should say otherwise?" Ahab looked down, shamefaced. "You are right, O man of God. I have sinned, for I have not kept the Lord's commandments, nor have I walked in his ways. And he has declared his wrath against me and my father's house." Looking up, the king asked, "And what shall I do?" "Now go, gather all the people of the city, the prophets of Baal and the worshippers of Asherah, and come with me to Mount Carmel." Elijah responded, "There I will make a great display of power, that the Lord may be known among you, Israel, and you may return to him. Beware, though, lest I make you like the former kings of Israel." Trembling, King Ahab led the way to Mount Carmel. The vast assembly crowded the mountain slope, buzzing with questions and doubts. Who was Elijah? Why had he come? Would the drought end, or would the God of Israel turn against them? The king and the prophet took opposite sides of the crowd, facing each other. Elijah called to the prophets of Baal and Asherah, Call on the name of your gods. May the first to answer be reckoned as God." The prophets of Baal shouted, danced, and cut themselves, calling on their gods for a sign from morning till noon. But there was no answer, no voice, no fire. At noon, Elijah began his challenge. "How much longer will you go limping along between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow Baal." The people were stunned, caught between two faiths, two futures. Elijah continued, "But let us prove here which one of us it is who follows God. You shall choose whatever sacrifice is brought, and I will make a burnt offering of it." The prophets of Baal agreed. They sacrificed a bull, placed it on the wood, but did not light a fire. Instead, they called on their gods for a sign from heaven. They waited anxiously, their eyes fixed on the sky, hoping for a miracle. But hour after hour, the heavens remained silent. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the mountain. Then Elijah spoke again. "I have waited patiently for your answer, but there is no reply. Hear me now, O Israel. The Lord is God." With that, Elijah destroyed the altar of Baal and made his own altar of 12 stones, one for each of Israel's tribes. He dug a deep trench around the altar, cut wood, and laid the pieces of the sacrifice on top. Then he poured water on the offering, drenching the wood. Again and again, the people watched in suspense as the water soaked the sacrifice and filled the trench. Finally, Elijah stretched out his hands to the sky. "Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, show your servant your power and answer me before your servant and the people you have brought here." There was a sudden crash of thunder, and the people shielded their eyes, looking toward the sky. From a great height, fire fell from the heavens, white-hot, fierce and bright, consuming the sacrifice, the wood, and the stones. The trench crackled with flames. Everyone cried out in awe. The people fell to their faces before Elijah, shouting, "The Lord is God! The Lord is God!" King Ahab trembled as he watched Elijah raise his hands toward the sky. He remembered the drought, the famine, the people's cries. Could this be the God of whom they had heard so much? Had he been wrong to turn away from this God of Israel? Hope blossomed in his chest, chasing away some of the doubt and fear. The fire subsided, leaving behind only glowing embers. Elijah stepped forward, his eyes blazing with determination. "Rest the prophets of Baal. Do not let one get away." The people stirred, their fear of the false prophets now replaced by anger. They seized the prophets and brought them to the brook below. Elijah stood watching as justice was done. Then Elijah turned to Ahab and said, "Go, eat and drink, for I hear the sound of heavy rain." King Ahab hurried away, his steps lighter than they had been in years. As he left, Elijah climbed to the top of Carmel, kneeling to look toward the sea. Anxiously, he sent his servant to spy on the horizon. "Is anything there?" he asked. The servant returned, shaking his head. "There is nothing," he said. 6 times he went, and came back with the same report. But on the 7th time he cried out, "Look! A cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea." Elijah stood up, his face brightening with hope. Quickly he told the king to hurry. "Quick, O king, get your chariot and go down before the rain prevents you." Then, turning to his servant, Elijah said, "Go, tell my servant, hurry and say to the king, 'Go up, for the rain is coming.'" As the sky darkened, clouds rolled in, and the wind howled, the first drops of rain fell. Ahab raced his chariot toward Jezreel, but the Spirit of the Lord swept through Elijah, filling him with power and speed. He ran ahead of the king, swiftly guiding him to safety, showing him the way toward a new beginning for Israel.